Most of you know a lot of how we think about poker because you've seen us talk about it a lot of times.
Yeah.
That gives you an advantage over us when you play with us on Nitrogen Sports Poker Room, where the poker guys play.
Yeah, you got to use the link in the description, though, if you want to sign up for special free rolls, bounty tournaments, and other cool stuff that you can get into where the poker guys would be joining you, and, of course, prices on our heads, which is pretty sweet.
Well, you have to use the link, or else you don't even get to see those, and you're the garbage human, and you don't want to be that person.
No one wants to be that.
Also, super fast withdrawals and deposits, like 5 to 20 minutes. Get on Nitrogen, get your money, knock us out of a tournament, have some fun.
Get you some poker.
In Australia, the water flows the other way. The kangaroos are everywhere. I think they're the currency there.
I think they're the police there.
And also the Aussie Millions cash game happens, and that's a 501,000 Australian dollars, so I don't know if that actually has any meaning.
400, 800.
It's a big cash game, and it's got a bunch of rich businessmen like Richard Yong, and it's got good pros like Jason Mercier, and they are going to butt heads in this hand.
I mean, let me tell you, this is a cool hand because everyone's got a lot of money, and a lot of money is being shoved into the middle, and there's some tough decisions ahead for Jason Mercier, which is, always fun.
Guess who suggested this?
I'm going to go with Brian with a Y.
Brian with a Y. This guy just
Always.
Can't stop killing it. It's just how he does it.
It's because he knows to tweet it at us at Two Poker Guys, and he knows to include a YouTube link.
He knows all the things.
He knows he's got to include a timestamp with that YouTube link.
Yeah, he knows all the things. Anyway, we're going to break this hand down as we go, so get ready for some analysis.
Mercier, well, he's had some strong hands. This is also a good one.
26.
He's got the kangaroos, and we're better to have them than Melbourne, Australia.
8,000.
Kate's re-raising with King-Queen on the button. Richard Yong, maybe he'll be able to fold. I don't know. No? What do you know? 9-5. Perhaps his travel agent told him something he liked hearing. Yes, we've got the President's Suite for you. Mercier may even raise the price here and now.
Raise.
Kings don't like too much company. He makes it 23,000.
23 total. Plus it up. Another 15,000. Cool.
And it is Richard Yong with a 9-5 in spades
Heads up.
who decides to take on the young American.
Up to you.
That ace will be ugly to Mercier.
Check.
Okay, I know this is a bad flop for Jason Mercier's hand. He doesn't like seeing that ace, but we have to talk about pre-flop
We have
because
to.
some stuff happened pre-flop, and we just have to talk about it. It's kind of like teaching your kids about something you don't want to teach them about, but
It's like the sex talk.
don't do what Richard Yong did, people. Don't do it. But beyond that, Jason Mercier's sizing, pretty weird, right?
Richard Yong, I think, learned it from you. Okay.
Okay.
But yeah, okay. So Mercier's size is really small twice, actually, pre-flop, which is sort of strange.
Yeah, it's like tournament
I
sizing.
figure maybe he's doing it because it's Richard Yong and Fua, David
Yeah,
Fua?
Paul Fua.
Paul Fua, excuse me. in the
David is
blinds.
also a name, though.
And that's something I have going for me. They're the two businessmen. They're two of the whales at the table, and so he wants to play more pots against them in position. That probably is one of the many, many reasons why Jano Cates is 3-betting here.
Yeah.
And of course, then we get this crazy call with
This is the
9-5
worst decision
suited.
in the hand so far.
Ugh.
What is Richard Yong doing flatting the 3-bet with 9-5 suited?
I think I know what he's doing.
What is he doing?
He's being rich.
Okay, that might be what he's doing. But let's think about this. We can
Yeah.
continue in this hand with 9-5 suited if we want to against an aggressive cutoff opener and an aggressive button 3-better.
Yeah.
That's allowed, but we have to 4-bet. Let's make it 25,000. Let's put the pressure on these elite pros instead of being out of position with a hand that rates to be the worst hand, even if they're bluffing. What are we doing? This is a horrible idea. Categorically, I don't know what else to say.
I often in our podcast defend the rich whale plays, and sometimes I'm successful, sometimes I'm not.
Sometimes.
But I take it on myself to defend it. I couldn't even really try. There's no defense to flatting here. By the way, I think if Young wants to continue with the hand, he should make it even more than 25. He should probably make it around 30,000.
Yeah.
He's going to be out of position against two guys. But this also comes back to now Jason Mercier's 4-bet sizing,
He
which
makes
is
it
tiny.
Only 23K, only 15K more. It's a bit of a surprise that Cates folds. I mean, maybe he sees Mercier's hand. I don't know how Cates folds here. This seems like a mistake because now Young's call here makes sense.
It's actually
He's
a
getting
good play.
a really good price now. And Mercier probably should be pricing people out a little bit more and charging Richard Yong, who decided to flat call a 3-bet. When we have the second best hand in poker, let's charge the rich guy. He doesn't need any more money.
Yeah, instead Mercier gives a showing of Honey, I Shrunk the 4-bet.
Nice.
So, thank you. I've been working on that one. So then we get the flop, and it is, as Grant said, not the flop you really want to see as Mercier.
Yeah, obviously Yong's range is super wide. We can't really expect it to be this wide
No.
most of the time. But in a traditional setting, Yong has way more aces in his range than Mercier has in his. Mercier might not even have ace-queen here, whereas Yong
Hard to
might
know.
have down to ace-10 suited. And Yong, of course, probably has even worse than that, considering that he has 9-5 suited here. But if Mercier is going to be outflopped pretty frequently, he should be checking back here. And beyond that, as an exploitative measure, Yong might fold all worse hands and call with all better hands, so it might make no sense to bet here.
Yeah, I mean, think about it. If you're Richard Yong and somehow you have 2 jacks, which I guess you could have.
Yeah.
It's possible, right? And then Mercier bets this flop. What can you really beat except stone cold air here?
Yeah, he's probably just going to fold those hands. So
Yeah.
it's a good check back by Mercier. We hope that it gets to go check, check, and we get to get some value on the river or something, and that's the plan, I guess.
There's already plenty in the middle. 2 spades there for Richard Yong now.
$53,000.
53,000. We've seen him fold aces to trick it. Would he fold kings to Yong? Both times he's actually been in front. But the pressure of playing for
Go.
6-figure sums can do strange things to a man.
Check bet.
Nothing at all for Richard Yong, except the knowledge that he's one of the richest men in the Far East. He can use his money like a cudgel. 86,000. Real money.
86,000.
He's losing to any ace. Huge decision here for Mercier. We can see that he's way in front. He can only see that it's going to cost him a good year's salary for most people, $86,000. The chips are in his hand, and he makes the call,
For God's sake.
and he is going to be a very happy bunny. Says Richard Yong only really had a 9.
Let's talk about sizing, guys. Does
Okay.
that sound good? So Richard Yong chooses 2 very different sizes as percentages of the pot on his turn and river bets, and they might mean different things to Jason, or maybe Jason is just going to close his eyes and call anyway against Yong, but we need to talk about what these sizes mean, starting with the turn size, which is nearly a pot-sized bet. What does that tell you, Jonathan?
I mean, it feels pretty strong, but it also doesn't make a whole lot of sense after Mercier checks back. Let's say you're Richard Yong and you have ace-10.
Yeah.
So you got top 2, you're loving your life here, and you want to bet for value. You want to actually get paid. Why would you bet pot against the guy who 4-bet and then checked? It looks like Mercier has the hand he has, right?
Yeah.
Looks like he has queens or kings a lot of the time. So I don't know how profitable it could ever be to bet pot here, because it looks like you're trying to push him out of the pot. The only way this works in my mind is if Richard Yong is always betting pot on
Yeah.
turn or near that, because he's the rich guy and this is his one edge on a guy like Mercier. He's not afraid of the money at all. He doesn't really care if he loses the pot. Well, for Mercier, this represents a lot of cash.
It's a lot of money. Look
Yeah.
at that size of that pot. That's huge. It's
Yeah.
a really big pot. The other thing it does that's a negative for Yong is it diminishes his value range. You wouldn't
Yes.
expect him to bet this big with something like ace-jack. He's kind of saying, I have ace-10 or better. Like, I made a set of 10s on the turn,
Yeah.
I had a set of 7s on the flop, or I have ace-10, something like that, because this size is not likely to get called by many worse hands than ace-jack. Although, of course, we see Mercier does call with 2 kings. So it's a bit of a leveling war there. But in general, you wouldn't expect Yong to size it this way with his marginal value.
I don't know if it's really leveling as much as it is just polarization. So
Right.
when Yong bets, he's got one of the many, many, many draws that he can have, or he has a hand like he has, or he has great value, right? Super strong value, and that's it. And even ace-10 is really hard to show up there unless he's got ace-10 suited as Mercier. So we're really looking at sets of 10s, sets of 7s, and just a few ace-10s. I don't know if Yong is going to bet ace-queen like this or ace-king like this. Maybe he would.
I wouldn't
Maybe.
expect it. I wouldn't expect it.
But I don't know if he will.
The one good thing about the turn bet size is it looks like Yong has value and he's trying to charge Mercier if he turned a draw.
That's true.
So that is a little bit of a good story, but that's about all he's got going for him.
Yeah.
So now we get to the river and he chooses a half pot size. Now Mercier only has to be right 25% of the time. That might be a mistake.
I mean, on one level, it's a mistake because any mathy player is just going to find a call here because almost all the draws missed.
Yeah.
However, on the other level, it looks pretty strong, man.
It does look pretty strong, and it's a really poopy spot for Mercier. I think this is usually a fold against most players. I think this is an exploitative call because he's played with Richard Yong. He sees Richard Yong do stuff like this, and he checked back the flop, and he doesn't want to allow himself to be exploited having checked back the flop with 2 kings.
I mean, part of the whole deal of checking back the flop is to allow the bluffs to bluff, right? So when we call the turn, we call knowing sometimes we're calling to allow the bluffs to continue to bluff again on the river, right? If we think we're losing, we're probably just going to fold the turn. Although we do get a second data point, and it's a scary data point, quite frankly.
5-6 gets there.
5-6 is the one thing that gets there, but everything else doesn't, right? Spades miss, the 8-9 misses, gut shots miss pretty much. I mean, there's not a whole lot to be afraid of really, except the sets and maybe ace-10 suited.
And to be fair, he might be wrong about half the time, but remember, he only has to be right 25% of the time.
Exactly.
And that's why he's making this face when he calls. Check out this face. It's not a happy face. He's like, well, maybe I'm only right 35% of the time. I'm going to lose a huge pot, and this is real money a lot of the time. But mathematically, I have to put the chips in. It kind of sucks. But Richard Yong, you're just a little bit too live, and I'm going to call.
This is one of the things that good players do that bad players don't. Bad players think, how likely am I to win this? And they just think in terms of 50-50 type numbers, rather than also taking into account the price that they're being laid. Mercier just doesn't have to be right very often. So you can lose 2/3 of the time and still be making the right play by calling. And understanding that is vital to being successful.
And of course, Mercier is very happy that this is one of the times that he's right, because it's nice to win that money.
Yeah, that's real money, yo. So what do you think, people? Was that a good play by Mercier and Yong, or do you not like the way that they played it? Do you wish Mercier would have bet the flop? Do you think he actually is supposed to fold the river even though he happened to win this time? Or should Yong just be sizing completely differently?
Do you like Yong's pre-flop play?
Like, what do you think if Yong, for example, bets a lot more on the river? Maybe Mercier just can't call. He's offering a much worse odds then. Let us know what you think in the comments. We'd love to see that. Also, by the way, if you like what you're seeing here and you want to know how we got to this, check out our podcast.
Yeah.
It's called The Breakdown, presented by the Poker Guys. We spent a good 50 minutes talking just about this hand and all the decisions that went into it. We get pretty deep.
We do get pretty deep, and we get deep in all of our breakdowns, which is why you should watch all of our Aussie Millions breakdowns. Click right up there to do that.
Yep. And if you like this video, make sure you subscribe to our YouTube channel.